The background that's associated with Heller v. District of Columbia is that there was originally a ban that was passed in 1976 that banned firearm possession within the District of Columbia. You can't have the possession, registration of these weapons. However, if you did have one, it had to be secured with a trigger locking device and left unloaded at all times. So there was no means of using it for self-defense, if that was your purpose of having it. Also important to mention is that Heller was a law enforcement official who just wanted to keep his work weapon at home. That was really the main premise behind the case. He was denied, which led to the appeals and it winding up at the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court reviewed the case, Justice Scala issued the majority opinion. And in this opinion, he determined that the ban from 1976 was unconstitutional. He also reversed opinion from the opinion of United States v. Miller and determined that the Second Amendment should be read in an individual manner instead of a collective. And he also stated that the individual right is for the law-abiding, responsible citizens to use in the defense of hearth and home. However, at the same time, he also ruled that the regulations against the mentally ill and those convicted of felonies from having firearms are actually constitutional. However, one major downfall with this is that it failed to set a standard for any further reviews of the Second Amendment that might occur. The third and final case law that we're going to review today is McDonald v. City of Chicago. And in this case, there were two laws from the state of Illinois that were being questioned. Justice Alito stated that the Due Process Clause that's contained in the 14th Amendment has already incorporated the Second Amendment to the states, which was one of the questions that was raised. Because of that decision, McDonald v. City of Chicago was actually sent down to a lower level appellate court for additional review. And then an additional result from this case was that the states and the federal government can't regulate gun control in any manner that they see fit. I find that interesting because right now, that's what the president's doing. That's what certain states are doing. A perfect example of that's New York and the regulations that they have now passed. Just something to think about. Next, we're going to discuss some of the global regulations that have been placed and the global issues. When it comes to discussing global gun control issues, you have to realize that 60 to 90% of conflict-related deaths that occur are due to small arms, which are your firearms. And many countries outside of the United States really foster an attitude of violence, and that attitude, that's what we're dealing with. Another major issue with global gun control is that they are very easily transported. And both legally and illegally, which can lead to a lot of problems. That ease of transportation, just not good. And there are approximately 875 million firearms throughout the world. That's a lot. And you got them moving everywhere, legally and illegally, without us knowing about it. I see a big problem there. The majority of that 875 million firearms, though, all began as legally purchased, bought, created. So, however, taking these into consideration, it's also unrealistic to expect for a complete ban of firearms to occur. It's just not possible. Some of the global regulations. Please excuse me if I pronounce some of these incorrectly because, yeah. You have the Inter-American Convention against the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms, ammunition, explosives, and other related materials. You have the European Code of Conduct, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Document on Small Arms and Light Weapons, the moratorium in importation, exportation, and manufacture of light weapons in West Africa, the Nairobi Declaration on the problem of the proliferation of illicit small arms and light weapons in the Great Lakes region and the Horn of Africa. The Bamako Declaration on an African Common Petition on the illicit proliferation, circulation, and trafficking of small arms and light weapons. Additional global regulations. The Protocol on the Control of Firearms, Ammunition, and Other Related Materials, and the Southern Africa Development Community Region. And important documents. You have the Protocol against the illicit manufacturing and trafficking in firearms, their parts and components and ammunition, which it served to supplement the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime. And it became known as the Firearms Protocol. You also have the Program of Action, which served to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all of its aspects.